For the past few months, I've been investigating a particularly cruel crime. Scammers are targeting older women with Chinese heritage around the world. There are victims in the UK and across North America.
Just felt like she was in some ways hypnotized and manipulated.
They're tricked out of their life savings and valuable jewelry, and they're left wondering, how did that happen? It's called the blessing scam. It plays on people's superstitions and exploits their love for their families.
They put the fear into me so much that I was willing to do anything, for the sake of my son.
Every blessing scam starts in the same way. It's a piece of criminal street theatre in Cantonese. But how does the con work? A stranger in tears comes up to you. They ask you, do you know a Chinese traditional healer in this area? My family member's really, really sick. You say, sorry, I don't know them. Then a second lady appears. She says, oh, I know him. He cured my husband. I can take you to him. Let's go together. The two women take you down a quiet side street. They're very insistent that you need to help. You might protest, but then a third lady joins. Guess what? She knows the healer. She's his granddaughter. The women have been acting like they don't know each other. But this is the moment where they pile on the pressure and they flip the story onto you. They warn you that one of your family members is in danger and they're being threatened by an evil spirit. The scammers tell you that you could save your relative's life if you let them perform a blessing over a bag of your cash and valuables, which they'll help you get from home. They promise that you can get this back at the end. But during the blessing, the bag is switched for another bag that looks and weighs the same, and the gang makes off with your life savings.
Right.
Meng Ni, can you tell me what happened to you?
Yes, I got scammed actually by 3 women.
Meng Ni was approached in a West London street while she was on her way to yoga. The scammers persuaded her that evil spirits threatened her family.
She then said, something's going to happen to your son if you don't act within the next 3 days, but the healer can help you and he will do some ritual which will alleviate this bad fortune. Of course you want your children to be safe, but they put the fear into me so much that I was willing to do anything, for the sake of my son.
Terrified for her son, Meng Ni went to collect valuables to be used in the blessing ceremony to protect him. One of the scammers accompanied her to help.
So I went along with it, went to my home, she walked with me to my home. I went in and collect all my jewelry, and then I had to go to the bank, and she came with me to the bank as well. We took the bus there. And I withdrew some cash, and then after that we went back to the original place where we met. We met the other 2 ladies again.
The scammers performed a blessing ritual in the street. Meng Ni's bag of valuables was placed in another bag with some items supposedly blessed by the healer, and then it was handed back to her.
They've got really nimble fingers. They are so fast. I didn't even see it. And then she says, now you have to go home now, and don't stop by anywhere, just go straight home.
What was inside the bag when you got home?
Just a bottle of water, a loaf of cake, and a brick. My blood just drained out of me. Just felt hopeless and stupid. I felt very, very stupid.
One of the reasons why the scam works so well is because many Chinese families have heirlooms and jewelry made of gold, silver, and jade. There's a belief, especially amongst older people, that these items have protective powers, and if they're used in the blessing, then it makes the protection spell even more powerful.
I've had my jewelry for like 40 years, They are memories, something from my mom, yeah.
I'm trying to understand what happened. Would you say that you're a spiritual person?
I think because I was brought up with going to temples with my mom, and then we do offerings, we give gifts of money. So maybe in a sense it's kind of relatable, and make me believe that maybe somebody who knows how to do the offerings and the rituals and to heal the other person or to get rid of whatever curse there is.
Miles away on the other side of London, the blessing scam is claiming more victims.
So my mum's been coming here for over 30 years, and sometimes she comes on a weekly basis, on a Thursday or a Saturday. So the place is really familiar to her.
On a shopping trip here in May, Tue Van Huyn's mother was conned in a similar way to Mung Ni. The thieves got away with cash and family jewellery, so Tue turned detective.
So when my mum told us what happened, we asked her if we can revisit the location and just walked through the steps and then noted where all the CCTV cameras were. And I came back and went to local businesses and shops to see if I can actually retrieve it.
In the CCTV, you can see one of the women walking ahead while Tue's mum follows, flanked by the other two scammers. We've blurred her face to protect her identity.
You see the three of them coming? So you can also see like the lady quite close to my mum.
She's pressing her shoulder up against your mum.
Exactly, yeah. She never leaves my mum's side. That's the one that went to my mum's house.
A doorbell camera filmed one of the scammers leaving Tue's mum's house after helping collect valuables for the blessing ceremony. Tue and I retraced the route to where her mum was tricked out of her possessions. So this is where it happened?
Yeah, so this is where the three ladies led my mum to do the blessing. And, you know, she took all her valuables, so the gold, the cash in a bag, and somehow, while they were like distracting and talking to her, they did the exchange here.
Security camera footage shows Tue's mum with a plastic bag containing thousands of pounds in cash and her jewellery. Unbeknown to her, the women switched the bags, and after she got home, she discovered her valuables had been replaced with water bottles. How's your mum been coping since this incident?
Well, it's been about 4 to 5 months and it's been really, really tough. But initially it was heartbreaking to see her just break down. Like, she wasn't able to eat, she wasn't sleeping. She didn't really have the motivation to go outside because she was scared. So it really debilitated her.
Tue's mother can't explain why she did what the women wanted, so Tue speculated something more than psychological manipulation might have been involved.
Like, why would she just willingly follow these ladies and bring one of them to the house and give all of her valuables and cash? So when I started to research, I came across this drug called devil's breath, which is a plant that's based in South America, and it's kind of like being made into a powder where, if breathed in or smelled or touched, I don't really know the exact mechanics, but it can cause someone to lose themselves and follow a person's instructions.
Devil's breath, or scopolamine, is derived from a flower that grows in Colombia. As its nickname suggests, it's a drug with a terrifying reputation. In the right dose, it can reportedly make people highly suggestible, temporarily compromising a person's free will.
Where I am here in Colombia, there's a long history of devil's breath being used to commit crimes. The number of cases tends to go up around when people get paid each month or during large city festivals, city events. I spoke to a toxicologist who's a doctor here at a clinic in Medellin who's used to treating people at least a few times a month who might have been robbed or sexually assaulted under the influence of devil's breath. He told me criminals most often slip the drug into a drink, but in the street, they might also spray it into a victim's face as a mist or a perfume. Now, what happens after that is the victim becomes compliant within just a few minutes, and they might hand over their money or their ATM pin or whatever it may be without much of a struggle. Afterwards, that person may have memory loss or even complete amnesia of what happened.
So is devil's breath being used in blessing scams in Britain? The drug passes through the body very quickly, so it's difficult to test for. But none of the blessing scam victims I've spoken to believe they were drugged. Devil's breath is quite an extreme theory, and there hasn't been any firm evidence that it's being used here in blessing scams.
No, not really, but looking at the characteristics of my mum and how she behaved and my research, it does lead me to believe that that could be the case.
However, a fraud expert has identified other reasons why the criminals are so effective at gaining people's trust.
I think this particular scam is so successful because you are getting people that mirror you in terms of, you know, they look like you, they're female, you know, they could possibly be of a similar age to yourself. They are speaking their own language. It's a gentle introduction, and then they will be working up, won't they, towards, well, this is what needs to happen next. And then if another person joins the scenario, you already feel at ease with that first person. So you're not necessarily seeing any red flags that make you walk away.
Police in the US, Canada and Australia have issued public warnings about the scam. 2A is trying to publicise the issue in the UK, where the crime is less well known.
So seeing the impact it had on my mum, and then after researching myself and seeing how far the crime goes in terms of the different areas and the other people that's been impacted, I decided to create a campaign to try and raise, well, predominantly awareness, so other people wouldn't be they wouldn't fall victim to this. And from that campaign, all of these other cases started to arise, and victims started to come forward and tell me their stories, which is absolutely crazy. And it's not just London, it's also in Liverpool, Manchester and Birmingham.
Meanwhile, the criminals are still at large.
For me, it's Chinese people scamming Chinese people, which really makes me angry, you know, and I want the public to be aware of this. I want them to stop, not to con innocent people, and maybe live a decent life, you know. Like I said, karma will come back, you know. If you do good on this earth, I believe you will be rewarded. But if you're hurting other people, you think you can make easy money while the rest of the world is working so hard for their livelihood, and you're just scamming people off like this, this is not right.